Hi, Jake.
Hey there.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Okay, we've got two people in already and they can hear us.
Okay.
Okay.
I have one quick question, if that's okay.
Of course.
So for the question and answer component,
Mhm.
since it's a bigger group, are they going to be doing like in the chat to you and you're moderating it, or are they just going to be able to ask openly at the end?
No, because it's a webinar format. So they will, hold on.
Parents, I want to introduce you to our speaker for the evening, Heather Mckay. She has a master's degree in education and is a former college and career counselor like myself for Simi Valley School District. She is a founder of College Connections Conejo, and she has helped a multitude of students and their families get through the college admissions process and the dreaded financial aid, the Fafsa. So we are very excited to have her here tonight. And here is Heather.
Thanks, Yvette. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Mckay, and I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into it so that we can get started with our presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, it says host disabled participant sharing screen. Jake, can you help me with that?
Yes, hold on one second.
I think I got it.
No, you should be able to share now.
Okay, now it's letting me.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right. So let me get this going. All right, so my presentation tonight is called Financial Aid 101. It's completing forms, making deadlines, comparing costs, and appealing for more. The whole financial aid process can be really overwhelming. It's like learning a whole new language. So I'm hoping that with this presentation, by the end of it, you understand things a little bit more, you understand the terminology, and you know what your options are. So that's my goal. To start off, I do want to shed a little bit of light on how I got here today, why I do what I do, because like your students, I was also at a very large public school. I went to Hart High out in Santa Clarita. And when I was in high school, we didn't have college and career centers. We didn't have any of that. So we had our guidance counselors, and I only really saw my guidance counselors twice a year to pick classes because I didn't seek them out for anything else. And I didn't really know what I was doing for college. I was an AP kid. I took honors classes. I got good grades. I assumed I'd go to college. But I kind of just did whatever my friends were doing. So if they were applying to a college, I was like, great, sounds good. So I only applied to two colleges. They were both out of state. One was a private and one was a public out of state. Didn't get into one, got into the other. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to college. So the first time I ever stepped foot on that campus was after I graduated high school. I went to orientation there to pick classes, take placement tests, that sort of thing. And I hated it. I did not do my due diligence. I did not research it properly. I did not understand my fit. So I was a little disappointed after that weekend. It was in Tucson. It was the University of Arizona. It's a great school, but again, I just didn't do my due diligence. I didn't research why I wanted to go there. I was just copying my friends. So about a week before I was supposed to move to Tucson, I found out we didn't apply for financial aid. We missed the deadline. And so our only option at that point was private loans. And so I was going to have to take out $27,000 in private loans to attend. And I was not thrilled about that because I didn't even really want to go there. And I thought because I was an AP honors kid that I was going to get all these merit scholarships from the school, that they were just going to want me, which didn't happen either. I didn't understand any of it. So I ended up going to community college. I canceled my acceptance and I transferred to UCSB. And community college is a great option for you if you are thinking about it. I mean, I can share more information about that later, but UCSB was a great fit for me. I loved going there. I got my bachelor's in English, graduated in 2008, wanted to be a writer, but we were in an economic recession. So at that point, I was making a little over minimum wage working for a staffing agency, and I had a bunch of student loans from UCSB. Again, I didn't really understand the financial aid process. So I went back and got my master's. I wanted to research education and understand higher ed policies. And so my master's is in educational leadership, organizations, and policy. And that's what I did. And then since then, I've been working in various roles in higher ed for 10 years. I've worked in test prep. I've been a private college admissions consultant. I've worked for Simi Valley High School as a college and career counselor. And now I'm an owner of my own business, College Connection Conejo. But like I said, I know where you're coming from. I know this process is really scary and there are mistakes you can make. So this whole presentation is meant to educate you on the process and what you should be doing now and what you can do if you have made mistakes and need to rectify it. So let's dive into some terms. So the first one you really need to know is cost of attendance. A lot of families come to me and they think that the cost of a college is tuition, but tuition is really just an exchange of money for your instruction. But cost of attendance is more than that. It's your tuition, it's your room and board, it's books and supplies, meals, transportation. Sometimes you have to pay for parking or health insurance, whatever it's going to take to be a student at that school for 1 year. So the cost of attendance at different colleges vary. So California community colleges, I did pull this from the Ventura County Community College District. They're saying roughly $12,000 to $16,000 a year if you live with parents, roughly $18,000 to $25,000 a year if you live independently. Cal States are about $20,000 to $25,000 annually. UCs are about $30,000 to $36,000 annually. Out-of-state colleges and universities are about $25,000 to $60,000 annually, and private colleges and universities are $35,000 to $80,000 annually. So it goes without saying, college is expensive. The numbers are big, and so it can be very overwhelming when you get these bills and you think, how am I going to pay for this? If you look at average tuition and fee trends over the last 50 years, they have just been on a steady incline. The numbers speak for themselves. If you look at the graph and you see, public versus private, it matches the same type of trajectory where they're increasing. Since 1990, average tuition and fee rates in the US have increased an estimated 130% after adjusting for inflation. So if you look at public tuition in 1990, the average was $1,888. And now it's averaging $9,349. So private in 1990 was $9,083. Now you're averaging $32,769. Big numbers. And most financial actually attribute the sudden increase that started in the 1970s with an influx of federal funding designed to make college more affordable. So that might sound contradictory, but what happened is the government started backing people to be able to pay these big bills. And so colleges responded by increasing what they were charging and getting more money in the form of financial aid. So, I mean, the one thing to think about when you're looking at these numbers, and it might seem really overwhelming, is do not sell your house. Don't empty retirement accounts. There is help in the form of financial aid. These numbers are big, but they're not really what you're going to end up paying. Most people do not pay full cost of attendance when they go to college, and they expect that you're going to apply for financial aid and they expect to be giving you something. So let's talk about that. There are different types of aid available. The three categories that I talk about are merit-based financial aid, institutional-based financial aid, and need-based financial aid. So these are the three big types of aid that you're going to see when you apply for financial aid in an award letter directly from the college. So let's talk about merit aid. So merit aid is given on ability, so academic ability, your GPA, your test score. So when I was applying to college, almost 20 years ago now, I assumed I'd get merit aid because I was a good student. But you can't assume that because not every college offers merit-based aid. Some public schools don't offer it, or it's very limited. Or if you're applying to a school like Stanford, if they gave merit aid on the basis of academic ability, like everybody would qualify for it. So not every school offers this, but if they do, it's given on the basis of GPA test scores, sometimes athletic ability, or if you're like a theater major, you have a talent, you're in the performing arts, you might see some sort of a merit scholarship. In addition to merit aid, there's institutional-based aid, and institutional-based aid is basically just money that's from the school for various reasons. So one of the popular reasons you get money from the school is they have an alumni donor that has set up a grant in their name. Cal Lutheran has some of these, for example. The process for that, sometimes you have to apply directly to that scholarship, or sometimes they're included when you apply for financial financial aid. So you always have to check with your individual college on their financial aid website to understand their process. Sometimes you get institutional-based aid directly from your major or your program of study. They sometimes have money set aside to try to entice kids to go into engineering or a certain type of program that they want to get more kids involved in. Or sometimes it's just recruiting purposes, and I call it the because I said so money. So sometimes colleges, especially private schools that have bigger endowments, if they really want you as a student, sometimes they'll open up a scholarship or a grant, and you don't necessarily know what it's categorized as, but it's just meant to lower their cost and try to entice you to attend their institution. So in addition to merit and institutional, there's need-based aid, and need-based financial aid is a big one. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. That's the majority of my presentation. Need-based financial aid comes in a few different forms. So the Pell Grant, the Cal Grant, the Middle Income Scholarship, school-based grants, work study, and loans. So it comes in a variety of ways. The Pell Grant is one of the first types of need-based financial aid that you might see. The Pell Grant is meant for families and students with exceptional financial needs. So you have a pretty low income and asset ceiling to qualify for this. And if you do qualify, you have to be completing your first degree, and you must complete your Fafsa to be eligible. And I will be talking about the Fafsa later. The amounts for the Pell Grant change yearly. Right now, the maximum is about $6,500, but the amount you actually get if you qualify will vary. It's dependent on your expected family contribution, which we'll talk about in a minute too, the cost of attendance of that school, and your status as full-time or part-time, and how long you're going to be in school. So that $6,500 number is not the guaranteed amount you get with Pell Grant. It will vary based on the school, and you might see different Pell Grant amounts at different schools that you've applied to. So there's also the Cal Grant. That is also a need-based grant. It is administered by the California Student Aid Commission. So it's a state-based grant. It's not federal the way the Pell Grant is. And it is mostly based on financial need, but there is a GPA component. So you do have to qualify with your GPA, which your school counselor will send to the California Student Aid Commission. That's part of their process. So when you apply for financial aid and your counselor sends your GPA, that is how you show eligibility for Cal Grant. Cal Grant is only for California schools. It is not for out-of-state schools. There are three main types of Cal Grant. Cal Grant A is the first one, and this is the one I think most people are familiar with. So Cal Grant A is for tuition and fees at four-year colleges. So the amount award is set, so it's a set amount depending on the school type. For a Cal State, right now it's $5,472. For a UC, it's $12,570. And for a private accredited nonprofit, that would be like a USC or an LMU or a Pepperdine or a Cal Lutheran. Those schools, it's $9,220. So again, the amount is set based on the school type. It's not going to vary. You can get a Cal Grant A award that's different depending on the type of school, like a Cal State versus a UC, but that will be the amount. Cal Grant A does have a GPA requirement. If you're in high school and applying, you have to have a 3.0. And if you are renewing and you're in college and you're completing the FAFSA after your first year of college to get financial aid for your second year, because you have to apply every year, you have to have a 2.4 as a college student. So the Cal Grant A, again, is the most familiar Cal Grant option, and it is a good amount of funding that is not something you have to pay back. It's need-based. Cal Grant B provides a living allowance. Right now it's at $1,648 for the first year at 2- and 4-year colleges. In order to qualify for Cal Grant B as a high school student, you need a 2.0. If you renew it beyond your first year, you'll get that $1,648 living allowance plus tuition and fees in Cal Grant A. Okay, so it'll kind of combine the two after your first year, provided your GPA is in the right range. And then Cal Grant C. Cal Grant C assists with the costs of technical or career education. So you can get a Cal Grant based off of your course of study. If you're doing cosmetology school, auto tech, surge tech, we have a career institute in Simi Valley, actually. But the range that you'll get for Cal Grant C depends on the type of college. Right now, it's $1,094 for a public community college. It'll go up to $3,099 for a private vocational school. And the money is supposed to be for books, tools, equipment, things that you need to be educated in that field. Okay, and it's only available for up to 2 years because it's meant to be more of a career education rather than a traditional 4-year. When you get the Cal Grant, California Student Aid Commission will award you the best fitting amount based off of your application. So you can, if you get Cal Grant B, for example, and you want Cal Grant A your first year, you can contest it and contact California Student Aid Commission. But in general, that really doesn't happen. It's they're going to award the biggest amount for you that is the right fit based off of your need and your GPA. So middle income scholarship, this is also something in California. It's a need-based program. It provides undergrads as well as students pursuing a teaching credential with family assets and income up to $191,000. This is specific only to UCs and Cal State. So you can't use the middle income scholarship at private schools or at community colleges. In order to qualify for this one, you have to be a California resident attending a UC or Cal State. You have to be a US citizen, permanent resident, or have AB 540 status. You have to reach those income and asset thresholds I mentioned. And you cannot be on default on a loan or incarcerated. The middle income scholarship amounts vary. There is no set amount. Every year, middle income scholarships are awarded based off of state funding. So if there's more funding with the state in California, they can give bigger amounts. And if there isn't, then there's smaller amounts. It's also based off of the cost of the school and your need. So they're going to look at those factors too. So I can't give you a set number on what middle income scholarship would look for you because it's really dependent on a few factors. So in addition to the Pell Grant, Cal Grant, and Middle Income Scholarship, there are also school-based grants and scholarships. So the ones I was just talking about before are backed by the government, but the school can also offer its own money for you. And grants and scholarship are awarded as free money. You don't have to pay them back. How they set their criteria for these, some of them automatically consider them for you when you fill out your Fafsa, which again, we'll talk about the Fafsa shortly. Others ask you to apply separately. So again, I've mentioned this before, but it is so important that you monitor your college's financial aid websites to understand what applications they require and their specific deadlines, because you don't want to miss an opportunity, right? I'll give you an example. So USC, their admissions deadline is January 1st. But in order to qualify for their school-based grants and scholarships, you have to apply for admission by December 1st. So again, you always want to know specifically what your colleges that you're applying to do for this process. In addition to the grants and scholarships you can receive on the basis of need, you can also get work study. So you might see work study in a financial aid letter that you get. Work study is essentially part-time employment while you're in school. So when they're awarding it to you, they're setting an amount, say $3,000 in work study, and you are going to get a job and earn that $3,000. Okay. It's available to undergrad, grad, and professional students, and it's based on need. And in order to get that, you have to accept it and then apply for the positions that the companies or the jobs on campus that participate in federal work study. And you apply and you interview and you get the job. You will make at least in federal minimum wage, if not more. But the important thing is, if you were awarded $3,000 in work study, you can't make more than $3,000 in a year because it could affect your financial aid moving forward. So you have to stay within the work study limits that are in your financial aid award letter. So you can also get student loans on the basis of financial need, and you'll probably get offered some of these in your financial aid award letters. There are a few types of loans. Subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans are student loans. They're taken out in the student's name. Subsidized loans are awarded and you do not need to, or they will not accrue interest, I should say. They will not accrue interest while you're in college. So the interest is subsidized while you are in school. Repayment begins 6 months after you graduate and interest starts accruing at that point. Unsubsidized loans the loan will accrue interest while you're in college. So this means that once it's dispersed, you're going to start getting a higher balance each month if you're not making payments. So with an unsubsidized loan, it's important, we always recommend that you start paying at least interest payments while you're in college, but you don't officially have to make any payments until 6 months after the student graduates. Parent plus loans are for the parent. So parent plus loans may be in your financial aid award letter, but they are not guaranteed. You do have to apply for them and pass a credit check. And if you do not pass the credit check, you can get a co-signer of somebody else who will back you. Parent plus loans do accrue interest while the student is in college, and repayment actually begins 60 days after you take out the loan. So you will be paying while your student is in college. They do not sit there and wait until the student graduates. Subsidized, unsubsidized, and parent plus loans, these are all federal loans, so they will be part of a financial aid award letter. You would see them there. And the subsidized and unsubsidized, again, they're for the student. There is a maximum that a student can take out. So a combination of subsidized and unsubsidized, year one is $5,500. Year two of college is $6,500, and then years 3 and 4 is $7,500. So that is the max that they will award you. They will not give the student more money. The whole idea is they don't want the students to be taking out too much debt. So that's the reason they have it set up that way. In addition to federal loans, there are private loans. These are not part of your financial aid award letter. These are loans that you would have to go out and find yourself. They would be given by creditors like a bank, Sallie Mae, that sort of thing. And interest rates and repayment terms vary for these. So as far as like when it starts accruing interest or when you need to start paying it back, like you need to get that information directly from the creditor where you're applying for that loan. Just note the benefit that I always tell my students with federally backed loans is that if you can't get a job, if you're unemployed, you can go in deferment or forbearance on a loan and they will set terms and be flexible. With private loans, often that's not the case. If you're not repaying a private loan, you don't have an option to say, hey, I'm not working right now. So you just have to be very careful with reading the terms of any loan you take out, right, in life, just in general, but just make sure you understand the repayment terms and what your options are if you can't pay. So I know I just threw a ton of information at you, the cost of college, understanding the types of scholarships and grants that are available, the types of aid, merit, institutional needs. So where do you get all of this money? Well, step one is you have to apply, right? If you don't apply, you don't get it. So the big thing that you need to learn is the Fafsa. That's step one. That is the free application for federal student aid. And I want to highlight the term free. It is free to complete the free application for federal student aid, the Fafsa. You don't need to pay for it. A while ago, I think somebody had bought the domain fafsa.com and they were charging families a fee for them to fill out the Fafsa through their domain. But the government, I want to say 5 years ago, finally bought that domain and took it away from them. So you shouldn't have the issue, but when in doubt, always go to fafsa.gov. Fafsa.gov is where you fill out your free application for federal student aid. When you go to fafsa.gov, you're going to have to create an account. It's your FSA ID. It's basically your login. You're going to need your social security number. So just be prepared for that. And it'll walk you through the process and it's going to sync up with your tax return. In order to fill out the Fafsa, you have to be an eligible, somebody eligible to do so, right? So you have to be either a US citizen, permanent resident, eligible non-citizen, or T visa holder. Okay, the Fafsa opens October 1st of your senior year and the due date varies, but this is a big one. You guys should all be hearing this, taking this in now. It is due March 2nd for Pell Grant, which is next Wednesday. If you have not done your Fafsa, you need to make it a priority to do it ASAP. That's for seniors, okay? Again, it opened October 1st. It's due March 2nd for Pell Grant, which is the need-based grant we talked about earlier. In general, though, it's due June 30th for federal aid. So those student loans, for example, the subsidized, unsubsidized, you can apply up to June 30th. Do know that some colleges have earlier due dates. So like Occidental College, for example, they want Fafsa done by January 10th. So I've said this a couple times, but you always need to look at your college's financial aid websites to know what they want, okay? Pell Grant is a state-run program, so You can get Pell Grant if you make the state's deadline, but all the school-based things, the school-based grants and scholarships, you have to apply according to their terms and deadlines. And again, the FAFSA's eligibility for Pell Grant, Cal Grant, middle income scholarship, institutional aid. When you complete the FAFSA, you're going to get back something called a student aid report with your federal expected family contribution, or EFC. And I'll tell you what you do with that in just a bit. So the FAFSA, the 5 biggest mistakes that I see families make is not listing your legal name. So the FAFSA is a government form. It needs to be the same name that's on your social security card. So if you go by your middle name and you put that as your first name on the FAFSA and it doesn't sync up correctly with what the government has in the system for you, basically, it can delay things and tie things up and you might miss a deadline. So always make sure it's the legal name listed on your social security card. Another mistake I see, there is a question that's going to ask about your net worth to basically understand your equity, right? And you do not need to include for the FAFSA the equity in your primary residence, because they don't expect you to use part of your equity in your home, sell your house to pay for college. It is in the fine print, but some families don't read the fine print. So just know that you do not need to include your primary residence when it asks you about net worth. It's not a factor. Another issue I've seen is families listing the wrong social security numbers. So the FAFSA is actually for your student. Your student is applying to college and will be a legal adult when they're there. So when it's saying your, it's asking for the student. The student is you or your. When it says parent, that means parent. So make sure you're putting the social security numbers in the right place on the form, and make sure your number is accurate to what's on your social security card. You don't want to get things tied up. Another issue I've seen is families listing total income instead of adjusted gross income as far as the income question goes. Now, if you do the FAFSA and you use their data retrieval tool, which basically syncs it automatically with your tax return, it should auto-populate it, the AGI just fine. But if you're manually entering this, or you just want to double check, make sure it is not your total income that you are stating, because you're going to overstate how much money you make when they want your adjusted gross. And the final thing that I see as a big mistake is families forgetting to update their college list with new colleges. So this happens a lot. The FAFSA opens October 1st. So I have some families that are really go-getters. They get the FAFSA completed November or December. And then in December, January, the student goes, oh my gosh, I want to, add a safety option, or I really want to apply to these 2 colleges now. And they forget to go back into the FAFSA and add those schools later. And then they wonder why they don't get a financial aid award, or they missed a deadline. So always make sure you're updating your college list within the FAFSA as your college list changes. So in addition to the FAFSA, there is also the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act is run in the state of California. You would go to dream.csac.ca.gov to fill it out. This application is specific for non-residents. So if you are eligible for the FAFSA, you do the FAFSA. If you are not eligible for the FAFSA, you would try to do the DREAM Act, okay? And I'll explain what the eligibility requirements are in a sec. But the FAFSA, the DREAM Act, like the FAFSA, opens October 1st, and it is also due March 2nd for Pell Grant, which is next Wednesday. So if you are eligible for the DREAM Act and you haven't done it, get it done. Eligibility for DREAM Act, you need to be undocumented or have a valid or expired DACA. You need to be a U visa holder, have temporary protected status, or meet the non-resident exemption requirements under AB 540, SB 2000, or SB 68. In addition to those things, you also have to have attended California high schools for 3 years. So they want you to have lived here basically for 3 years. If you haven't gone to high school in California for 3 years, but you have a combination of credits to have like 3 years worth of credits, essentially, that can qualify you as well. But they want a combination of your time in the state of California in addition to the non-resident. Again, if you qualify for DREAM Act, do the DREAM Act and do not do the FAFSA. You do not do both, you do one or the other. So in addition to the FAFSA and the DREAM Act, there are additional financial aid forms to consider. So the Css Profile is the College Board Scholarship Service Profile. It is run through College Board. Like all the other forms we're talking about, it opens October 1st of senior year. There is no set date for the CS profile on when it's due. It varies entirely by college. I mentioned Occidental earlier, for example. Occidental was due January 10th for Fafsa, but they also require the CSS profile in addition to the Fafsa, January 10th. So again, check with your individual colleges to see what their due dates are, but I have seen CSS profile as early as January. So if you've missed it, contact your college to see if you can still submit it and what their process would be for review. Sometimes they just say, okay, that's fine, submit it later, but you might have missed out on some money that's already been awarded, but at least you could be getting it in. In addition to the CSS profile, there's the IDoc. It's the College Board's institutional document service. Not every college that's on CSS profile requires IDoc, but some of them that do CSS profile require IDoc in addition. And IDoc is basically verification. So you will be requested to upload things like a tax return or a W-2 to verify the information you put on your CSS profile. But again, not every college that does CSS also does IDoc. So you need to check with your individual college. But what happens is if you do CSS profile, you create your login for CSS profile, you submit your form, and a couple days after you've submitted your CSS, you'll get a notification to create your IDoc. So you will be notified when you have to do so. And again, you need to look at what colleges require IDoc and submit the forms they're asking for to those colleges. In addition to CSS and IDoc, we talked about FAFSA and DREAM Act. Colleges can have their own forms, their own institutional forms. So always check your individual colleges to see on their financial aid website if there's any additional form that they require. Some of them, for example, if they do CSS, but they don't do IDoc, they do their own verification through their own school. So that would be something you would want to look out for. So once you've applied for financial aid, you're like, what do I do? Okay, I've submitted everything into the abyss. What's going to happen? Well, you're going to get an email to create a web grant for students account, and that's how you monitor your application, your FAFSA. So when you do your mygrantinfo.cssac.ca.gov, you're going to create your account where you can see what your Pell Grant status is. You can see what loans and that sort of thing. You also need to monitor your college's application portal or applicant portals for documentation requests and communications. Colleges communicate heavily through applicant portals, which can be very frustrating because you apply to these colleges and now you have 10 different applicant portals. You're logging into each of them to check for documentation requests, but you need to do this. I tell students to log in like once a week just to make sure they're not missing anything important from the school. Sometimes if you've submitted your FAFSA, for example, they want to verify information on your FAFSA and they send documentation requests in your college applicant portal. You need to get that. You also want to check your email, obviously, to see if they're emailing you requesting anything. And then you want to look out for your financial aid award letters. Sometimes they're posted in the portal, and a lot of times too, they also mail them or email them to you. I know it's not the best picture, but this is a real life sample financial aid award letter one of my students got this year. So if you want to know what it looks like when you fill out your financial aid forms and you get something back, this is it. So colleges will hopefully, not all of them do it great, but will break down their cost of attendance, their total estimated cost for 1 year. And then they'll break down and show you what kind of aid they're going to give to meet that cost. If they don't put the cost of the college on this letter, look it up so you have that number as you're comparing what they're giving you. So for this student, the cost to go to this school is about $52,000. And this student got about $32,000 in grants and scholarships, a combination of the Pell Grant, a merit-based scholarship from the school, and a need-based grant from the school. So after the free money the student was awarded, the total out-of-pocket cost was just under $20,000. So instead of $52,000, this student is required to pay just under $20,000. In order to do that, they're offering her about $5,500, the max in student loans, and they're also offering the parent a Parent Plus loan. So again, when you apply for financial aid, you're going to get a letter that looks something like this that breaks down the way that they're helping you with a combination of grants, scholarships, and loans. Now, you may be looking at that and going, okay, how did they come up with this financial aid package? I just sent this form in online and then they gave me this back. Like, why did they come up with this? So let's talk about how they do that. So expected family contribution, or EFC, is basically a federal calculation of what your family can afford to pay for college for 1 year. It may not be what you want to pay for college for 1 year, but it's based off of the information you put on the FAFSA. Income, assets, family size, etc., those all go into the calculation of this number. So we talked about COA, or cost of attendance, at the beginning of the presentation. So that's going to be what it costs to attend a college for 1 year. They take their COA, or cost of attendance, they subtract your EFC, and what's left over is your need. Your financial need is step 1 in determining an aid package. Your need is going to vary because your EFC, while it stays the same, as the cost of a school goes up, so does your need. As the cost of a school goes down, so does your need, okay? So your need at the different colleges you've applied to is going to be different, and how they meet that need is going to be different. So to give you a comparison here, cost of attendance minus EFC equals need, I have like a sample so you can see how this works in real life. So college A is $35,000 a year, college B is $70,000 a year, and college C is $55,000 a year. So college A might be like a US or UCLA, UC Berkeley type of school. It's like a UC tuition. College B is like your USC. It's a private school. It's a very big number. And college C might be your out-of-state public school, $55,000. The need at each of these schools is different because of the cost. Your EFC is the same, but your need at college A is $20,000, college B it's $55,000, and college C is $40,000. So when you're looking at your need at these 3 colleges, not every college will meet full need. So you should know that ahead of time. When you have their cost minus your EFC, your need that's left over, even though it varies by school, and not every college is going to cover your full need. So like college A, your UCs typically cover between 80 and 85% of financial need. College B, USC covers 100% of financial need, and college C, an out-of-state school, might only cover 65% of your financial need. These are samples, these aren't exact numbers, but I wanted to round them out and make it kind of comprehensible so you understand what I'm explaining. So college A, with your need of 20,000, they're meeting 85%. So they're giving you a $17,000 financial aid package. That will be a combination, again, of grants, loans, and scholarships. So your true cost is your unmet need plus your EFC, which is $18,000 for college A. For college B, they're giving you 100% of your financial need covered. So they're covering the full $55,000. That means your true cost is just your EFC, or $15,000. College C, the $55,000 school that only meets 65% of need, they're going to give you a financial aid package of about $26,000, which means your unmet need and EFC makes that school $29,000. So I just want you to take that in for a minute, because a lot of families rule out expensive private schools because they think, oh, it's going to be too expensive. But a lot of private schools have big endowments and money to spend to entice students to come or to cover need-based programs. So in this instance, the private $70,000 school actually is going to be less than the public in-state school. So you can go to a private school for less than the cost of a state school. It is true, but not every college meets 100% of need. Just because it's a private school doesn't mean it's going to meet 100% of need. So I'll talk about how you can figure out what percentage of need met these students meet. And then you also need to know that it's not just going to be need-based. A lot of scholarships and grants that are going to be offered might be on merit or based on institutional needs as well, but not every college offers everything. So it's important in the financial aid process that you pick the right colleges, because that really determines how much you're going to pay. And you don't necessarily want to pick based off of cost of attendance. So again, to maximize financial aid, first step is to pick the right colleges, not based on cost of attendance, but by fit. So financial fit, researching and understand how much it's going to cost and what kind of aid they're going to give you. You also want to know your social fit. Is the student going to be happy to go there and stick around for all 4 years? Academic fit, are they going to be successful in their classes, take advantage of research opportunities, co-op opportunities, internships, and that sort of thing. That's really important that you look at all 3 of these things when you're picking your colleges. So how do you figure out financial fit? So research your college's percentage of need met to understand what kind of award you're going to receive. So if you go to College Board's college search feature, you can type in the name of a college you've applied to. If you go to the cost tab and scroll down to financial aid, they will say percentage of need met. This is for UCLA, just so you know. So 82% of need met at UCLA, okay? You're going to often find that public schools are not going to meet full need because they are publicly funded by taxpayer dollars. So they don't have enough money to cover all of their students' full need. You're going to find more of those 90%, 100% at private schools. But again, that doesn't mean every private school. The sample award letter I actually had was for Azusa Pacific. They do not cover full need. They're about 80%. The other thing you want to do to understand what kind of award you should be expected to get is look at the college's net price calculator. So every college should have one of these. This one's from UCLA's website, and you can go to their net price calculator. It's going to ask you some questions that are on the Fafsa. It's not going to be as in-depth as the Fafsa. It's just going to be a general overview, and they will give you a predicted cost to attend. I always recommend that families look at the percentage of need met and that they look at the net price calculator before they apply, so that they understand affordability. Because again, cost of attendance often isn't what you end up paying. Okay, so if you've applied for financial aid and you've gotten back your financial aid award letter and you need more money and you're like, what am I going to do? This isn't enough. You can appeal for more money. So there is a process for this. Every college varies. So some of them have an Efc appeal process where you basically say that my Efc was inaccurate and you need to take into consideration other things. Some just want a formal letter written. Always check with your individual college to know what their appeal process is like. But some reasons you might want to appeal. So what if your percentage of need met was below average from the school? So you know what your Efc is, you know what their cost is, you subtract it and you know what your need is, and they're not meeting what they normally average. If you're looking on the College Board website and you say they average 82% and they're only giving me 70, that might be a reason to write a letter and ask for more money. Another thing that I have students appeal for is unexpected circumstances that are not on the Fafsa. So when you apply for financial aid, they're going to be matching it with your tax return. So right now they're looking at 2020 for current seniors. So maybe since 2020, your tax return is different because you've lost your job and you're not working anymore, or there's been unexpected financial hardship. Maybe you have medical bills that are not accounted for on your FAFSA. Maybe you're caring for a grandparent or someone that is not a dependent on your tax return. So you might have factors that are not on your financial aid forms that you need to communicate to the college for them to understand the whole situation to give you more money. I have had students do this. I have one right now whose mom's lost her job, and she's also going through chemotherapy, and her financial situation is not accurate. So she needs these colleges to know her current situation to give her more money. The other reason you might appeal is sometimes an aid package at a comparable institution was higher. So you're kind of like pitting one college against the other. It's kind of a wild card on how they're going to respond to it, but you can do that. So if you got more money at UC Berkeley, for example, and you want to go to UCLA and they're pretty comparable, you might say, hey, UC Berkeley is giving me this. I really want to go to UCLA. Can you match it and see what they say? This is a sample appeal letter that I wrote just so that you guys can see how to do it. If you are going to appeal with a letter, you want to, first of all, say how grateful you are to be admitted, how excited you are, it's your dream school, that you're also very grateful for the award that they've given you thus far. But then you need to explain specifically in detail your circumstance. Why are you asking for more money? You can't just say, I want more money. What can you do for me? You have to give them a reason. And those reasons I touched on in the previous slide are good reasons. So you would explain your reason on why you need more money. And if it's a hardship, for example, and you're explaining loss of income, you'd want to state the amount you've lost. If it's excess medical bills, you want to explain what those look like. If you're paying your grandparents rent or you're paying for their senior living facility, you'd want to include that number. You want to give them details so that they can understand what kind of help they need to give you. Then you want to close it by, again, reiterating it's your dream to go to this college to see if they can do anything for you and ask if there's any additional information they need. But again, this is an option. You can appeal for more financial aid, but you don't just appeal because, hey, I want more money. You have to have an explanation on why you are appealing for more. So if you apply for financial aid, you get your financial aid award letter, you've appealed, you're waiting to hear back, or maybe you didn't appeal, but you still need additional help to pay these bills. There are private scholarships. So in addition to what the government gives in the form of grants or the school gives in the form of grants and scholarships, private scholarships are another great option. These are basically given by private organizations, businesses, nonprofits, individuals, families, whoever, to sponsor somebody going to college. You should check with your counselor or the College and Career Center at your school to understand what local scholarships are available. And in addition, you should create profiles on different scholarship search engines so that you can be matched with scholarships on a national database. So some of these websites would be like scholarships.com, fastweb.com, niche.com, chegg.com, etc. Again, you make a profile and then it can match you with scholarships that meet your profile. You also want to monitor the financial aid website at the college that you're applying to, because they might have scholarship opportunities as well. These might be alumni donors, for example, or specific to students who go to that school. So you always want to look there as another option. I encourage students to apply to 1 to 3 private scholarships a week because you're trying to get paid after all. It's like a job, right? So you should make it a job, a part-time job, where you're making an effort to apply. The problem that I often see is that seniors spend the fall stressed out trying to get all their college applications done. And a lot of private scholarships require an essay and they're just burnt out and they don't want to do it. But it is so worth it to apply for private scholarships, and I'll explain why in a sec. For private scholarships, the best place that I tell students to start is with your local community. So local community organizations or nonprofits like Rotary, there's the Kiwanis Club, there's the Elks Lodge. These organizations all have scholarships for local students, and because they are local, the applicant pool tends to be smaller, which means the odds of you being picked are in your favor. Local businesses often offer scholarships too, so you can check with local businesses to see, directly ask them if they have a scholarship opportunity. Your local PTA, PTSA, and this doesn't mean just at your high school. So your elementary school PTA, your middle school PTA, they often have scholarships for students who graduated from there that they want to sponsor a kid going to college later. They also have district level PTA scholarships. So there's a ton of money there too. Your local library, the Ronald Reagan, in addition to the Simi Valley Library, they have scholarships. So again, all of these scholarship opportunities locally are amazing because they are a smaller applicant pool. It's not a national scholarship, which means that with less people applying, you have a better shot of being selected. One thing I will point out is you should never pay to apply for a scholarship. Scholarships are gifted to you. They are free. You should never pay for one. So if they're asking you for a fee to apply for a scholarship, avoid it. This is why I'm encouraging you to do 1 to 3 a week. When I was at Simi High, I had one student apply to a $1,500 scholarship. And I was trying, I was marketing it. I was putting in the announcements. It was on Instagram. It was on Facebook. I had flyers. I was trying to get the word out, but students were just burnt out and they weren't applying. And so I had one student for this $1,500 scholarship. And the organization actually asked me to extend the deadline 2 weeks because they had already formed a panel and they wanted to read applications. So at that point, I started sending passes to seniors' classes to pull them and hand them the scholarship application and said, do this, please. It's a good amount of money. I think you'd be great for it. Still, none of them did it. I literally handed them the application and they didn't do it. So we only had that one student apply after another 2 weeks and he got $1,500 because he took the time to do the application and write the essay. So again, it is so worth it to focus on doing 1 to 3 of these scholarship applications a week because the return on investment can be really good. And you can do this. So one other thing I wanted to touch on quickly before we go to question is the WUI. So the Western Undergraduate Exchange, or the WUI, is a tuition exchange between colleges and universities in the Western states. Not every college or university in the West participates and not all majors are eligible, but there is a good amount of schools that are involved in this. And For the colleges and programs that do participate, the tuition for a WUI student is 150% of what the in-state option is. So basically it saves you a lot of money. Instead of paying just flat out-of-state tuition, you would be paying the WUI rate. So if you want to look at WUI options, I have the website there, but it's www.which.edu. And you can navigate the website to find the college list and search schools or search for schools by your major to see if there might be a good option there as well. So I know that I went over a lot of information very quickly. I have my email address and my website up there too. If I'm going to take questions now, but if something wasn't covered and we don't get to your question, you can email me. I am available. Like, my passion is helping families. I have been through this. I get it. And I'm happy to answer your questions. So I will turn it over to Jake. I know that you were going to read the questions and I can answer them as we go.
Okay. First one from Aaron. If you apply for financial aid with a college, will the application for Pell Grants and middle income scholarships be automatic?
Yes. So when you apply with the Fafsa, that's what it does. It automatically qualifies you for Pell Grant, Cal Grant, and the middle income scholarship.
Okay. Next question. Do you have to include your retirement fund in the net worth?
That is a good question. I wish there was a straightforward answer. If you look at the fine print on the FAFSA, it will tell you what kind of accounts you do need to include and what kind that you do not need to include. So my short answer is look at the fine print. You can look at a PDF copy of the FAFSA to read the directions for that question to know, or you can email me and I can look at it and give you a more specific answer.
Can you apply for state and federal aid at the same time?
Yes, so that is what the FAFSA does. The FAFSA is a federal form. And when you fill out the FAFSA, that is what helps you apply for a Pell Grant, a federal grant, and federal student loans. But it is also the same form that is used for Cal Grant. So the California Student Aid Commission bases Cal Grant and state awards off of the same thing, FAFSA.
Are there services to help in this matter? Because it's all very complicated.
There are services that help in this matter. Just some free ones too, I want to let you guys know about. Cash for College is a nonprofit that is run through the California Student Aid Commission, and they run workshops regularly to help you complete your FAFSA, where you can actually sit down and get guidance. Moorpark College locally also does this. I want to say it's Tuesdays, but you have to check their website. But they do a workshop once a week where you go in and they have counselors there to help you fill out your FAFSA as well. You don't have to be going to Moorpark College to take advantage of that.
And as a side note about Moorpark College, they have a program called Cash for College. And I'm going to actually be sending a notification out to all of our high school parents this week about that. So they've got an upcoming program. They said the 26th, I need to double check it, but then they have a couple of others for the rest of the school year.
That's actually the California Student Aid Commission. So that's the one I mentioned, Cash for College. Moorpark is a site that partners with them to do that. So that's great that that's coming up. So that's free help for the FAFSA.
If the student has a social security number, but the parent does not, what do they enter when social is required? The parent does file taxes.
So when I would recommend when you do the FAFSA, put the student social security number. If the parent doesn't have one, you can put just 00000 to enter and get the FAFSA submitted, but you're going to have to write to the individual colleges to explain your situation so that they can verify your tax return.
Okay, this question had two parts. The first part Jennifer tried to answer, and it had to do with her daughter being married already. So the second part is, if she has not had a chance to change her name on her social security and driver's license, then would she still apply under her maiden name?
So yes, if she hasn't changed her name with social security and her identity is still her old name, she would need to do whatever matches. You don't do your married name because it's not legal yet, right? You need to use your legal name. So until that has been updated, she's still legally her maiden name. Was that the only part of that question, or is there a two-part you said?
No, that's the part that I can see right now, because we answered the first part. So next question was, I thought the appeal process would cover contacting colleges to compare what one has offered to hopefully get more from another.
I did touch on that. So you can do it for a comparable school. If you get into USC and they don't give you the same amount of money as, CSUN, and that's just an extreme example. Well, CSUN and USC aren't comparable. So the institutions have to be comparable if you're going to do that. But you also need to be looking at factors like percentage of need met, which I mentioned, to understand what kind of aid they're going to be giving anyways. You can't just like tell every college, okay, this is what I'm getting from all of my other schools. What can you do? It has to be comparable if you're doing it on that basis.
Okay. My dad served in the Marine Corps for 20 years and is a disabled veteran thanks to his service. I am supposed to have benefits, but I do not know how to acquire them. Will the Fafsa cover that?
The FAFSA is just an application, so it will not cover that. I recommend you talk to a financial aid officer, either at Moore Park College or one of the colleges where you applied, to understand what your options are. But you might need to go through the VA, actually, the Department of Veteran Affairs, because they're going to understand more on the benefits they're giving out as opposed to the college. So I would say go to the VA first, but you can also explain the situation to your colleges too, because that might be relevant information that they need to know.
You mentioned the Zoom would be recorded. Where can it be reviewed, or is there a way to copy of this presentation? I'll answer that one. It takes me a couple of days to get it up on our website, but it'll be on the district website, www.simivalleyusd.org, and look for a link somewhere on the home page. Okay, and that will be it. It's the actual video, so it includes the presentation that Heather put out.
Yeah.
How do I update my schools on the FAFSA website?
So you have to actually log back into your FAFSA. So when you create an account for the FAFSA, your FSA ID, that is your login to FAFSA where you submit your form. You're going to have to go in and edit your application, your FAFSA, and add the additional colleges.
Okay. My husband passed away on 10/22, so our income has changed. But I think you, Heather, answered it when you said that they can appeal. But yes. She asked if you can expand if there's anything else.
I'm so sorry for your loss, first of all. That's heartbreaking. But yes, that is a great reason to appeal. So when you appeal for more financial aid, you would need to explain the specific circumstance, explain that your spouse died, and explain loss of income if there's a set amount that you're no longer getting, explain any other circumstances, if there were bills associated with his passing that you now have to pay. Those are the things you would put in a financial aid award letter or award appeal.
I'm sorry I had computer problems. If you can repeat, what can we put for Social Security if parent does not have a Social Security number?
Because again, you put the student's Social Security number because that will match. For the parent, I would just put 00000 so you can actually push the form through, but you're going to have to contact your individual colleges to explain the situation to them, and then they can use the information to their discretion. And if you want further clarification on that, I really recommend the Cash for College workshop that Jake was talking about. That it sounds like it's on the 26th, but they'll be sending out information. Cash for College, they'll help walk you through it, or going to one of Moore Park College's FAFSA workshops that they have once a week.
Somebody has asked, they added their mother's name instead of their own. How can they fix that?
So you would have to log back into your FAFSA and edit so log into your FSA ID account with the FAFSA and go to your actual application and edit it. So you're going to have to make the student's name, the parent's name, the parent's name. If it's already been submitted to colleges, they'll get the updated version, but I would also, just to cover your bases, contact your individual colleges as well to explain the situation in case that holds things up. You just want to give them the information as quickly as possible.
Just to clarify, the FAFSA application needs to be completed by the student, not the parent?
No, the parent can do it for sure, because the student doesn't necessarily know your finances. But what I was saying is that the FAFSA is a application for the student because they're going to be an adult in college. It is in combination with the parent because it includes the parent's financial information and tax returns. But when the FAFSA says you, they mean student. When it says parent, they mean parent.
Really quick, I wanted to let Heather finish before I jumped in. When she was discussing the scholarship opportunities for our students, for the local students, or for the local scholarship opportunities that we have. Yvette, she is our college and career advisor right now at Santa Susana High School. That's where I was for the last 7 years. And one of the opportunities I want to make sure that our seniors know about is there is what we're calling our Universal Scholarship Application. And it is an opportunity for your student to apply to upwards of 12 or 15 college or scholarships with one application. You will have to submit one packet per application. And you're either, if you're at Santa Sue, contact Mrs. Bess. And if you are at any of the other high schools, contact your counselor, and they should know about the Universal Scholarship Application. I know right now we don't have a college and career advisor at the other 2 high schools, which makes it a little bit more difficult, I know, to get that information out. But like Heather said, getting these kids to apply has been so difficult that there is such a small pool, such big opportunities for our students. So please make sure that you reach out to your counselor, to Mrs. Bess, to get that information. You have to write an essay depending on the scholarship, maybe provide your PTSA information. A lot of our PTAs are on there for the elementary school, middle school, and high school. So please, please, please check that out. Feel free to, again, reach out to Mrs. Best, to me. Both of our emails are going to be at our first name dot last name, as you see on the screen, at simivalleyusd.org. And I'm happy to help walk you through it. It's a pretty easy process in comparison to other scholarship opportunities for you. So please, please, please make sure that you are looking into that and getting those scholarships submitted for yourself. The students should be submitting those.
100% you should do that, because when I was at Simi Valley High School, we were trying to make this universal application a thing. I am so glad it is one, because back when I was there, it was like 15 different applications. So if it's one application for all these opportunities, it's even less work for you. So do it.
I have one last question, and it's just to clarify what you've already answered. This is the person who has a social security number for the student, but not the parent. Want to know if there is, let me pull it up. Sorry, I have to go to 2 screens. If the student is 17, does the information change? The student will not be 18 until October 2022.
No.
I don't see how it would change.
It doesn't matter. And you have to do the Fafsa every single year when you're in college. The student's going to be 17, then 18, then 19. They're still a college student. They're still dependent, because the only way that they aren't a dependent is if they're married, or if they're emancipated and they can show that they can pay for their own stuff. Like, it is so hard to show that they're not dependent on the parent. The parent's always going to be part of the picture, even when they're an adult. So yes, it's going to always be student social security, parent, and your information.
One last question. This is the last question, everybody. My student attended Simi Valley High School for 3 years, then moved to Monte Vista. Can they still apply for the PTSA scholarship at Simi Valley High School? I do not believe they can.
I don't think they can, no.
But
You have-
Monte Vista might have their own scholarships.
You have to be a
Yes.
current Simi Valley PTA member in order to apply. And unfortunately, Monte Vista doesn't have a PTA, but there are still several scholarships available for Monte Vista students as well. So you can reach out to Sean Trowbridge, who is the current sub-counselor there, or again, you can email me or Mrs. Bess, and we're happy to help get you the right information for those applications.
And I know a lot of schools have their websites, like just scholarship information. So there's a lot of still spotlight scholarships that are up there, and check the website. I know we have ours that just say scholarship information. So does Royal, and I think Simi does too. So check your scholarship information website.
She was at Simi Valley High School for this fall. We were PTSA members. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's the school you're graduating from. So, but there are plenty of other scholarships available. A lot of our community groups are big with the scholarships. So
Yes.
don't limit
And-
yourself to PTSA. Look at the other ones that are there.
Yeah, we have
Yes.
Rotary and Simi Valley Education Foundation that are part of our Universal Scholarship application, and they give a scholarship to at least one student at every high school in our district.
All right. So we are done. If somebody would like
Thank you,
to.
Heather. Great
Thank you
job.
so much.